are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone and welcome to the next RELO Andes webinar. For those of you unfamiliar with the RELO office, it is the Regional English Language Office. It is run out of the U.S. Embassy in Lima, Peru. The RELO office is headed by Micah Risher and Marcelo Raffo. So my name is Maggie Steingraber. I am an English language fellow who is based here in Lima, Peru. Any questions you have with the webinars, I'll be the one that you contact. So in the confirmation email that you got, you see my email. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me and I'm happy to help you with any problems that you have or questions. So the RELO office works with anything having to do with English language programs. So we are all English teachers who are working out of the office. So in the spirit of English teaching, we want to make this as engaging and interactive for you as possible. So for those of you who are new to the webinars, I just want to take a few minutes to just show you how to use the software and how you can interact with us throughout this webinar. So Citrix is the software we use. I'm sure when you registered for the webinar, you got an email from Citrix GoToWebinar that was confirming it. That is the software we're using. So you see this control panel on the side of your screen. A couple things that you can do with it. If it bothers you, you can either expand it or collapse it using the orange arrow. You'll see that you are muted and your microphone will remain muted throughout the webinar, so we cannot see you or hear you. We're not going to turn the webcams on just due to connection problems. We don't want to slow down anyone's connection. So we'll go through some of the different tools just so that you can practice them before we have our presenter come on. The first tool is the chat box. The chat box is a chat box like you've seen on any other kind of app. You have the chat here. So if you have a question, if a technical question comes up, you can't hear us, you have a bad connection, you can type it in and we will try to help you on our end as much as we can. If also you have a question about any of the content, something the speaker said that wasn't quite clear or another thought came up, you can ask that question at any time throughout the webinar. We will save the questions until the end, but as questions come up, please ask them, and when the presenter is over, then we will ask questions and there'll be time to go back to them. Just to make sure that you've all found the chat box, can you just type your name, say hello, tell us where you're joining us from, just so that you can practice using the chat box. So once you found the chat or questions, just say a quick hello. So we have hello, Viviana's here, Monica from Ecuador, Leonardo, hello, Ruben, hello, and Jimmy. Madeline. All right, a lot of people found it. Okay, perfect. Hello everyone, glad you could join us. So the next tool that we have is hand raising. The hand raising is the tool that you see, the little icon that you see on your screen that looks just like a hand with an up arrow. This is meant to be like in any classroom. If you had a question, if you wanted to get attention, you could raise your hand. Since we have too many people for anyone to raise their hand if they have a question, we just use this to take quick polls for questions. So if you found the hand raising, can you push it just so that we see that you found it? So throughout the webinar, there we go, looks like you found, a lot of people found it. Yeah, so click on the hand and raise your hand just for practice. Throughout the webinar, the presenter might ask you questions and she might say, raise your hand if, whatever it be. So if you found it, please raise your hand just so that we can make sure you know how to do it. All right, great. Looks like most of you found it. Perfect. Okay, I will put your hands down. The next tool is polls. So there's going to be some questions. If we want to get some information out of you, we might ask you some questions. So we'll do a practice one now. Here's a poll just to get your experience on webinars. So what is your experience with webinars? Is this the first time you've done a webinar? Have you done maybe a few webinars before? Or are you a webinar fanatic? You do them every chance you get. So which one applies to you? First webinar, some experience, or lots of experience? All right, we have about half of the people have voted, a little more than half. I'll leave the poll open for a couple more seconds and then I will share the results with you. All right, so click on it. You can click on your screen, any of the options. It's just like a multiple choice. All right, and we'll close it out and share the results. So looks like a lot of people are very experienced in webinars. Well, 37%, 33 have some experience, and 30% this is their first webinar. So welcome to everyone. All right. The next tool we have is a handout. We don't have any handouts for this webinar, so we can skip over that one. Survey at the very end of the webinar, once you close it out, a survey will pop up. That is just for us. We have just a couple questions just so we can learn more about you and where you're joining us from, how many people are with. It will only take a couple seconds, and again, it's just for us so that when we're planning the webinars, we know a little bit more about our audience. So please, at the end of the webinar, please complete the survey. It's only 2 questions. All right, then. For today's webinar, we have Erika, who will be the presenter. Erika, are you there?
Hello.
Hello,
Yes.
Erika.
Hi.
Hello. Would you like to tell us a little about yourself, where you're joining us from?
Sure. Right now, I am joining you from La Paz, Mexico, in Baja, and I am originally from San Francisco, California. I've been teaching for 12 years, most of which were in K-12 classrooms, and also in teacher training and certifying teachers with their TESOL certificates.
Perfect. And what is the topic of your webinar?
Today, we're going to be talking about using foldable books in the English language classroom.
And everyone's supposed to have paper, right?
Yes, and it doesn't matter, scratch paper, any paper, just whatever random piece of paper you can grab.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Maggie, I have a question.
Yeah.
Almost. Are they able to download the PowerPoint slides?
We can make them available, yeah.
Okay. The directions for the foldable books are all on the slides, and it'd be great if they could have those.
Okay, yeah. Then in the handouts part, we will add the handouts now, so keep a lookout for that, and we'll get them to you.
Okay, thank you. I apologize for
no
not
problem.
asking.
All right. Then you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. How's it look?
Got it. Looks good.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me, and welcome especially to those of you where this is your first webinar. Today we'll be talking about foldable books for the English classroom. All right, so I want to do a quick poll just to find out who is with us today, and it'll help. This will help me with giving examples for classroom uses. So if you could let me know if you are a pre-K through 3 teacher, ages 4 through 8, if you're teaching grades 4 through 6 or ages 9 to 11, grades 6 through 9, ages 12 to 15, or if you're teaching high school or adult students. I see about 25% of you have voted. So a lot of adult educators, it looks like. No young kids, okay? Some elementary school, but mostly teenagers and adults. Okay, this helps. Okay, so I see that most of you are teaching high school ages or adults. So we're going to change the focus a little bit as we go through to looking at see how this is going to work for that age level. All right, thanks. So moving on. Today's agenda, we're going to take a look at how to construct 3 foldable books. We're going to look at some plans and examples of some additional books, and you'll be able to have access to those, the handouts on when you download the PowerPoint. We're going to discuss ideas for real classroom uses, and then talk about how and why foldables will enhance your teaching. Okay. Oops. Okay, so the first thing you want to take a look at when you're doing foldable books is the vocabulary. There's a lot of vocabulary that's naturally embedded in teaching with foldable books. And again, you can adjust this for whatever age level. You've got horizontal and vertical when you're just how you're holding the paper, folding and to fold, cut or to cut, crease or to crease, and like the crease is the edge of the paper after you fold it, that part that's been folded. To tear if you don't have scissors, and most classrooms don't. We're going to talk about what a tab is and using of tabs. And then things like 1/3 or thirds and 1/2 or halves. So I want to ask you, if you could take a look at the chat box, what are some other vocabulary words that students might need when doing foldable paper projects in your classrooms? So go ahead into the chat box and just kind of toss in some other vocab that you think might come up in your classrooms when you're doing this. So I'm not seeing any responses yet. Maybe like corner or points or shapes. So I see margin, fold, paste, points, brainstorm, ideas, circular. These are excellent. Frames, perpendicular. Yeah, there's a lot of vocabulary that will come up, and as we go through this, maybe, hi Roxanne, center, even, once, twice, yes, repeat. There's a lot of vocabulary that will come up, and if we can keep an eye on that, maybe it'll help when you're teaching these in your classroom. All right, thank you. So today we're going to the first one we're going to talk about is going to be, and I apologize, the 3-tab book. And you can see right here you've got the tab, which is the flap that's opened up, and this is the 3-tab book. So we're going to start with that one. Very simple, but really useful. So grab a piece of paper, any kind of scratch paper, and if you could please raise your hand when you've got the paper and you're ready to start. All right, I've got about half of you that are ready. Almost everybody's got paper. Okay. You guys have grabbed your paper. All right, so let's take a look and head out. So the first thing I'm going to do is hold your paper horizontally. Again, it's a vocabulary word, and in your classrooms you can hold that and they'll see that it's horizontally. After that, you want to take it and fold the paper down horizontally. Some people call this a hot dog fold, some people call it a burrito fold, some people just say fold it horizontally down, depending on your age level group or what they're familiar with. You can then point out the crease at the top of the paper, and you want to make a nice crease. Moving on, take the paper as is and fold it to the right, about 1/3 of the way in, making a nice crease. How are you doing? And then folding again over 1/3 of the way in. After that, you want to open it up, and you'll see that you've got your paper in 6 pieces. And go ahead and tear from the top, or if you've got scissors, use scissors. I just assume tearing because most classrooms don't have scissors. Just kind of tear from the top down to halfway, like you can see in the picture. Then go ahead and tear the second one. You can probably guess. And as easy as that, you've got your 3-tab book. So here, boom, 1, 2, 3. So some ways, let's talk about some ways to use the 3-tab book. So here we've got a teacher that has animals that fly, animals that swim, and animals that walk or run. And you're free to make this as complicated or as simple as you want, and how elegant you want this to be as well. They've got on the inside, this teacher here, fish, whale, dolphin, and squid with the little drawings. Again, depends on your population and the time that you have, if you want to do that. And under this tab, this being a tab. And then the next one over here, you've got dog, cat, and different animals that walk or run. So just helping to categorize the animals when they're learning something like that. Your learners probably won't being as though most of you are teaching older, you may not have animals, but you can probably do something else with them. For example, okay, one of the reasons why I like the 3-tab book, it helps to glorify or glamorize the Venn diagram. You're probably familiar with Venn diagrams. It helps to encourage higher order thinking skills of comparing and contrasting. See this example here, we've got on the first side, it's inside activities, and on the last tab, outside activities, and then inside both inside and outside activities. For example, they've got gardening, camping, hiking, and running for outside. And again, depending on your students, if you want to have them draw pictures, if they're maybe just beginners, maybe you would actually put the pictures. You can cut and paste things in there, and they can say those words depending on what you need. So this type of diagram was created by John Venn in 1881, and it's a fantastic teaching tool that you can use over and over. So any kind of thing that you want to compare and contrast, you can use this 3-tab book for. Okay, so let's do a quick poll talking about using art activities in your classroom. So how do you feel about using art activities in your classroom? Are you really comfortable with it? You use it all the time? Do you use art sometimes but not a lot? Perhaps you'd like to use more art activities but you don't have the supplies, or perhaps you'd like to use the art activities but you're not sure what to do. So how are you feeling about using something like this in your classroom? And if you don't like art activities, there's that. Just don't put anything. So I'm seeing about 40% that uses art sometimes but not a lot, about 30% that likes to use art activities but doesn't know what to do. All right. So 24% of you are comfortable using art activities. Most of you like to do art but don't use it a lot. Oh, it's nice to know that you do have supplies. That'll be helpful. And then 24% like to use art activities but aren't sure what to do. So that's what today's webinar is on, is how to easily integrate a little bit of art into your classroom that's not quite so scary and isn't really in a high demand for the students too, because sometimes they're hesitant when it comes to that as well. Okay, so let's move on. All right, so taking a look at the second book, we're not going to make this one, but I just wanted to point out some ideas for you. It's the same concept as the tabbed book, but it's for sequence. You've got, what you do is when you're folding the tabbed book, you just leave a lip at the top. You leave some space at the top for another, for a heading or a title, and you can leave it at the bottom too if you prefer to see it at the bottom. For example, on the top circle, you can put maybe when you meet someone new. And then the bottom circles can be options of what you might say when you meet someone new. Hello, how are you? It's nice to meet you. My name is, what is your name? The different options. You can either have like expressions on the inside or on the outside, or maybe a hint on the inside and the words, a hint on the outside and the words on the inside if you're quizzing yourself. Maybe you want to do 3 tabs. When you're leading a party, what might you say? Good night, good evening, see you tomorrow, it was nice to meet you. You could do it for greetings of time of day, different things to actually have them sort of have some cheat sheets and some hints on speaking. These can be used after they make these. They've thought about it, they've written it down, and then when you want them to practice in partners, they've got something in their hand that will guide their partner talk, that will guide their speech. And it helps them. And once they get used to it and they don't need it anymore, they don't need to use the books, but this will help when you're first starting to get your students to speak about something new. I'm looking forward to your questions at the end. Okay, so along the same lines with the tab book, this is an example of the 4-tab book. And if you want to have a 20-tab book or a 2-tab book, it's the same idea. This teacher here has spring, summer, autumn, and winter. You can see they spent a little more time with theirs and had some more supplies. Underneath in the tabs, they've got information about spring, about summer, autumn, and winter. Depending on where your students are, you can have them list the clothing that you wear during these different things, activities that you might do during these different seasons. What is the weather like? What is the temperature? Whatever you want to do, you can categorize those things by the seasons. So just some ideas. But I bet you've got a lot of ideas too. So I want to take a minute to let you use the chat box. So what are some things that you can think of that can be broken into 4 categories or even 3 categories that can be used by a book like this? For example, like we've seen 4 seasons, or maybe transportation. We've got air transportation, water transportation, above ground transportation, and then underground transportation, say like the subway. So what are some things you can think of that have categories that you could maybe have your students organize into a book after doing like a unit? Life cycle, awesome, yeah, definitely. First, second, third, and fourth, if you've got metamorphosis, complete life cycle, incomplete life cycle. We've got different stores, what you're going to find in different stores. You've got verbs, nouns. You can do different parts of speech. What else? All right, so we'll move on. With these books, with foldable books, you can modify them any way you want. This is something that you can take and just sort of go with it however you want. If you want to turn the book sideways or upside down or inside out, it can go whichever way you want. This teacher has Olmec, Maya, Aztec, and Inca, and they turned the book because they liked it, the look of it better that way. So there's no right way to do these foldable books. Okay, moving on. We're going to take a quick look at the vocabulary book. This one here, you've got the same thing with the tabbed book, but they've cut it into more pieces. For example, you can have the colors on the outside if you're doing beginning learners, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and then maybe the word written on the inside. This is great for spelling practice. You can have the pictures on the outside. Another option to have the colors on the outside and an example of something that is that color on the inside. I have a red cherry, an orange, a yellow banana, a green pepper, etc. This will help to reinforce the adjective then, and then having the noun follow the adjective. I have a brown potato, a black seed, or white bread. This also helps with students want to quiz themselves or quiz each other. You can also have them make different books and then share those books to spread your materials. Okay, so we're going to make another book. This one's a little bit more complicated. Go ahead and grab another piece of paper and try this with us. And if you could raise your hand when you've got your paper and are ready to begin, we'll go ahead and start. So we've got almost half of you with your hands up. All right. So with the paper, here we go. This time we're going to make a quick book, and I'm having you make these once you know what it's like for the students. You can think about the vocabulary that you'll need, and then if you need an example, you already have an example. So since we talked about different things with 4 categories, like such as a life cycle or maybe some parts of speech that you're focusing on, here's another book with 4 categories. The envelope, foldable, or window book. So we'll be making this one now. This one's a little bit different because we won't use it as a rectangle. You need to put it into a square. So you want to make a square by folding, like the picture shows, a top right corner down to the left side so the corner, it's going to match up and your sides will be even. You're making a sort of triangle on the top and a rectangle on the bottom. Then either fold that back and cut off the extra part, or tear it if you don't have scissors. Again, I tear most of these. Okay, so then you want to take the square and fold it, open it up, and fold it the opposite way, making an X in the middle of your book. And then open that up, you've got an X. Take each corner and fold that into the center point. And again, this, if you've got mathematical students or students that just need a break for a second, this can take it off, take their mind off whatever's stressing them out. Folding that. And you'd be surprised, sometimes you might not think that older learners, adult learners want to do something like this, but I've had pretty positive feedback when we do these sorts of activities. It isn't making them think that they're little kids, it's just sort of giving them an outlet that's a little bit different than normal. All right. So you repeat that for all 4 corners, and there you have another simple book. Some people choose to have one giant picture or mural or something in the middle. Other people have like question and answer and kind of go around. Other people have different categories and examples in there. You can have examples and non-examples. There's lots of different things to do this, and if you ever need to display something, they look pretty. That is the envelope fold. Okay, you guys ready for one more? This one, the next book we're going to do is my favorite book, and this is the last one we're going to fold together. This one's the most complicated, and it's my favorite. So if you could let me know if you're ready to begin by raising your hand, that would be helpful. It's almost there. Give you another second. Thank you for letting me know by raising your hand. It helps me out. Okay. All right, so the next one is the mini book. This one's really popular. And again, you might not think that it's appropriate for older learners, but I was surprised at the reaction that I saw. And it does give them a break. So taking a look at the mini book, here we go. You start with the paper vertically, fold it in half, vertically, fold it again in half, which puts it in fourths or quarters. Again, you can use fourths, you can use quarters for vocabulary, corner. Then what you want to do is fold it down into eighths. Okay. From there, the next thing you want to do, it should look like this. Do you have a paper that looks like this? If it doesn't, just do the same thing again, but format the paper. Try it with it horizontally. And do it horizontally in half again, and fold that down. How are you guys doing? Okay, so you've got a paper that's in eighths. So from there, you want to pinch the middle, like the picture's shown. So you pinch the middle where you've got a mountain, and reinforce your creases at that point. That'll make it easier. And once you've got this, go ahead and tear that top. You have the crease on top. Go ahead and tear that top down the middle to where you have 2 sort of flaps. And then with the flap, after that, what you're going to do is grab the gaps and kind of pull them apart, but putting the bottom of the paper together. So then you make a sort of like star, like you've seen here. How are you doing? Okay. So with that, then what you do is you just sort of bring the pages around, and you've got your book. Some of you might have a tall, thin book. Some of you might have a shorter, fat book, depending on the way that you originally did it. It doesn't matter. It's however you prefer to do it. And you've got your mini book there. The mini book is kind of cool. You've got a front cover, a back cover, and 6 pages, so there's a lot you can add in there. This is great if you want to tell them, throw it in your purse, throw it in your bag. You've got a study guide right here that's small. You don't have to carry it around. It doesn't take up a lot of space. They can write things in there. One woman's idea, Julia Schneider, on the Etsy blog, she uses this not for ELL, but I thought it could be amended for that, but for keeping track of what she's doing that week. So she uses the front cover and the back cover and has each day of the week on there. So if you're working on things like what do you do on Sunday? Where do you go on Sundays? Do you spend it with your family? Do you eat dinner somewhere special on Mondays? Do you go to work? Do you go to school? What is your schedule like? If you're working on times or schedules or maybe meetings, this kind of vocabulary, you can use this, and it's broken up kind of nicely, and they can take that with them for studying. All right, we're moving through kind of quickly. Okay, the next one is Shutterfold. Feel free to make this if you want, but I don't have that one planned to make. So what you can do for this one, basically fold the paper in half, open it back up, and then you want to fold the edges in to meet in the middle where you have a shutter, which is kind of like, shutters are something that you have to commonly cover windows. If there's a storm, you would close the shutters. So shutters are something that open and close. One idea I've seen, drawing a house on the front, if you, and then you can open that up, and you've got inside, you have all the different rooms of the house. You've got the kitchen, the bathroom, the dining room, living room, bedroom, and all the things, the vocabulary inside there, just to help sort of categorize things a little bit better and give those artistic people a chance to express themselves in that way. You might find some things. Can also be displayed around the room for reinforcement. Okay. The next one that's also pretty common and really simple is the pocketbook. Here you can, what you do is you can fold this into thirds. Take the bottom, fold the bottom up, and then if you've got adhesive, go ahead and either glue, tape, or staple, but it's not necessary. Then you have 3 pockets to help organize things. You have people, if you're doing nouns, you have people here, places, and things. So people, places, and things could be one. Anything that you want to categorize, you want to organize a lot of students have flashcards. They want to organize their flashcards, doing things like that. So like here you'd have people, places, or things. Some other examples of the pocketbook. Let's see. You've got a 2 pocketbook, just 2 sides, and this one isn't even glued. This teacher here has 3. They're using this one with math, actually, with numbers, just to carry things around, toss it in their bag or purse. And then this one has the inverted pocketbook, where the pocket is on the outside. I think they're doing some kind of cute activity here, and then they've got the vocabulary. Here's more vocabulary: open edge, folded edge, and pocket. Vocabulary that's useful in more than one area than out here. Okay, so why do foldables work so well in the English classroom? So one of the things that I like to do with the foldables, or why I like to use these, is it's TPR, it's total physical response. So here you can see your learners. You're holding up the paper. This is horizontal. This is vertical. Touch the corner. Touch the crease. And as you're walking around, you can see their understanding. And if they don't necessarily understand, they look at someone else and they can figure that out. It's just a different way. It really helps with categorizing the language. And when you're categorizing things, it helps you to look at the vocabulary in a different way And when you're doing something in a higher order thinking, it helps to commit it to your long-term memory. It helps to organize things. A lot of language learners might get overwhelmed with what's going on and how they've got all of these things. And some, it might help calm them down if they've got things organized in such a way. It also helps with opportunity when you are trying to categorize and organize. It can let your class discuss different uses of the words. For example, like crease can be a crease, a noun, or it can be to crease. You can discuss like where is that going to go. It's low cost. So if the students can bring paper, if you have paper, I noticed someone said they have to buy their own supplies. I know that's pretty common for a lot of you. So if it's a low cost thing, hey, bring in a scratch piece of paper. The other thing is it doesn't have to be a clean piece of paper. It can be recycled paper. It can be used. A lot of the books only use one side after they're folded, so it doesn't have to be a blank piece of paper. Foldable books have little prep. You're not setting up a big science lab or making this big production. You are just bringing the directions, and if you know the directions yourself, you don't even need a projector or a presenter. You can just kind of show them and tell them and do it together. And then once they have these things like the tabbed books, you can use that over and over. It's higher student interest. It's something a little bit different, a little more relaxing. It accesses a different part of their brain when you're doing things kinesthetically and artistically. And it talks to multiple intelligences. So talking a little bit more about multiple intelligences. So I imagine most of you are familiar with multiple intelligences. Can you please raise your hand if you are aware of multiple intelligences? We'll see if people know what I'm talking about when I mention that. Howard Gardner or multiple intelligences. So a few of you are raising your hands. Yeah, raise your hand if you are familiar with multiple intelligences. Okay. I see more hands going up. About 25% of you are aware of multiple intelligences. Okay, so I'll go into that a little bit. Multiple intelligences is an idea by the theorist Howard Gardner that students have different intelligences or different smarts, meaning they may be strong in one area and not so strong in another area. So traditionally, education has focused on the verbal linguistic smart intelligence and the logical mathematical intelligence, and people who had other intelligences weren't always historically considered as smart as other students. And with this theory, it's saying how everyone is smart. It's not that everyone is equally smart, it's just how are you smart. Are you an intrapersonal learner where you think about things and analyze things and think about yourself? Are you linguistic, which is where your talkers and your writers and your language learners are? Are you logical, mathematical, organized in categories? Are you a naturalist, where you really understand plants and animals? Are you visual, spatial, or into art? Are you body kinesthetic? Maybe those athletes have that intelligence with their body or how to do those things. There's some people who are musically inclined, and then there's some people who are really social. Your social beings are interpersonal. And so this is actually pretty fun. When you're doing foldable books, even with adult learners, you're hitting visual spatial or your art smart or picture smart people who they don't usually get as much going on in the classroom. Classrooms traditionally lead to just the linguistic and mathematical, but we want to spread things out a little bit more for them. You also, in the English classroom, you're looking at a logical mathematical. So you've got those people who maybe they're frustrated by their language classes, but when you bring in something like this, it can ease their minds. This can also be used as interpersonal. People, for a second, maybe they just get to stop and kind of work quietly by themselves. And then also these activities are body kinesthetic. They're moving to learn. They're folding. They're picking it up. They're looking around. They're doing something physically with language. All right, and please, if you have any questions about multiple intelligences, go ahead and put it in the chat box, and we'll get to that in a little bit later. So assessment. We want to make sure always that we're assessing our classes consistently to see how well we're doing as teachers. One of the reasons why I like foldable books is you can see the learning and the comprehension because this is a total physical response thing. Folding it this way to the right, to the left, to the top, to the bottom, underneath, behind, there's all sorts of things. And the foldable books do get much more complicated. This was kind of just an introduction to the concept. Rubrics are recommended when grading these projects. If you don't have time to make a rubric or you're unfamiliar with them, there's a fantastic website called Rubistar. Here is the link that can be downloaded with the PowerPoint. So Rubistar is fantastic. They have Rubistar in Spanish as well. If you go up to, it's a pink website, and if you go up to the right corner in Rubistar, it'll say Rubistar in Spanish, and you can do that. And it doesn't have to be just for books. The rubrics are for all kinds of different things. Okay, so we're almost finished. So some other ideas for using foldable books. You can use it as a study tool. Students can quiz themselves quite easily with that. They can use this as partner work. They can quiz each other or for discussion prompts. Maybe you formulate the books to have like question and answer, and they can use those as guides as they're walking around the classroom. This can also be something that can be turned into project-based learning. You've probably seen people making pamphlets, which is just a trifold one-third book. Pamphlets for maybe the place they're from. These can be done for whole class groups, small groups for individualized work, and you can see that the learning is happening in there with that. All right. So a couple of resources that we've got here. Howard Gardner's Multiple Intelligences, Higher Order Thinking with Venn Diagrams, and this one right here I'd like to point out to you because this is a fantastic resource here. Diana Zykes Reading and Study Skills Foldables for the American Journey. If you Google this, you can find her downloadable PDF. And with that gives foldable books for about 30 different books and ideas on how to utilize those in your classroom. So I would recommend looking at this, Diana Zykes Reading and Study Skills Foldable. And when I wrote to her, she said, yes, go ahead and use this and reproduce it. She definitely wants to get reading out there. And also Rubistar and an Etsy blog. So really quickly, I just want to kind of breeze through what we did this afternoon. And then we'll get there. All right, so we have looked at 9 different books. We looked at the tabbed books, the 3 tabbed books, the tab sequence book, the 4 tab book, modifying books, the vocabulary book, the window book, or envelope fold, whichever you choose. We looked at the mini book. An idea for categorizing things with a mini book, the shutter folds, a pocket book to organize your flashcards, why foldables work well, how this works with multiple intelligences in the classroom, assessing them with rubrics, and some other ideas. And at that, I'd like to say thank you for participating with us. I really appreciate your time, and I hope you got something that might give you an idea, something you can do for your classrooms coming up soon. And that's it.
Thank you, Erika. So we had a couple questions coming in throughout. The first one was from Maria, and she wanted to know if this kind of work is for children or if it can be prepared by students of other ages and levels.
Absolutely, it can be prepared by students of any age level. We are all born artists. It's just as we age, people don't necessarily take the time for that kind of thing. And it may, I mean, some people might feel like this is little kid work, but it really isn't. You're just using the piece of paper to organize and to categorize. And I have had a lot of positive feedback with adults and high school students as well when doing some simple things. I think it's just a lot of it is your tone of voice and how you approach this. You're like, hey, instead of saying, we're going to do an art project, when you're talking to older learners, you're like, I want to show you this way, or we're going to use a piece of paper, for one, to practice new vocabulary, for two, to just organize some of the vocabulary that we've been working on. So just it depends on how you approach it and how you bring it into the classroom that makes it age appropriate. The activities themselves are age appropriate, it's just how you bring it into the classroom.
And there was another question on number 8, the shutterfold, and if that could be used for grammar purposes.
Of course, yeah. You can use this for any kind of purpose that you want. If you want to have maybe verb, adverb, or different things like that, however you want to organize that, you can use that for grammar. I'm not quite sure where they were going. If they could maybe elaborate a little bit, I can, if they had an idea, I can help go off of that idea. Okay. Grammar is a really big topic.
Then there was another question from Jimmy on if you had more information on how to use the foldable books for children specifically.
Yes, that I have a lot on. Definitely Google, I can, if you want to give my email address, I should have probably included that. I can send him the PDF of this, the Diana Zykes that has more specific things. There are hundreds of ideas, thousands of ideas that go through that are pretty attractive for using those. You can do anything with colors or patterns or shapes or animals or sounds or different responses, but the one that I recommend the most is Diana. It's like that's on the list of the resources up there. It's fantastic.
And there were a couple questions that are about some more ideas on using this for project-based learning.
Okay.
You could elaborate on that idea.
So let's say you've got a unit and you're working on a unit maybe with shopping, and you can create, maybe one group is creating something, a larger piece of paper, and they've got one store, maybe using the shutterfold for that. You've got this store over here and the vocabulary in this one, this store over here, this store over here. And you can have them work on that and maybe present on what they found, like show their store. Another really common project is making the brochure for, let's say, your city. You want to have the flora and fauna of your city, you want to have attractions, you want to have museums or places to visit, and maybe like transportation getting to and from your city. You can do, you can grab a larger paper and make the mini book and just having different categories on there. Maybe how to build a sentence if you want to do something like sentences. The first page can be like, I have an apple. The second page, I have a red apple. The third page, I have a large red apple. The fourth page, I have a large red apple on the table. And you can kind of maybe add sentence by sentence and sort of work on that and present those things. Anytime the students are putting artwork, putting vocabulary, putting practice into these books, it is a project in and of itself.
And there's a question on any advice that you would have with large classrooms. This person has 40 students in a class.
Okay, so with that, that gets a little bit tougher. I would use more simple books. And just start off, like I would just do simply, like the first book would be like a 2-tabbed foldable book where all you're doing is talking with the vocabulary in the first one. Paper, horizontal, fold, cut, boom. And maybe the next time you do that, it's going to be repeated and they know that, so you don't have to teach quite as much. You can do maybe, I don't know, a 4-tab book. You fold it, you're holding it horizontally, you fold it up, then you add folding it in half again, and you add cutting into this one or tearing into that one. You can also perhaps like hand the directions out. If you've got adult learners and you have access to a copy machine, I know that's pretty rare, but if you do, you can give them the actual directions and have the directions written in English with the picture on there. So you've got the picture and you've got the directions written in English so they can kind of figure out what it's saying by looking at the picture. Okay, this says fold to the right, and they can see that the arrow is pointing to the right. This one says, you know, fold back or fold to the left, and you can see that the arrow is pointing to the left. So you can give them the handouts, have them kind of work on it on their own and wander around the classroom. Or you can take things and start with simple, do something simple and short, and then next time just adding one extra piece of that so they're not, you're not giving them a huge amount of things that are confusing, because that's when you'll start to lose them and it'll get more chaotic. But each person is responsible for their own work, and what I like with foldables for large classrooms is everybody is accountable. They've all got the paper in their hand. It isn't like doing something oral where it's more difficult to get accountability for their product. So you're like, all right, you've got the paper, let me kind of scan around to see how you guys are doing. Does it look right? Okay, and then let's say you've got a couple that are struggling, grab those students who got it. Hey, can you please help them using those other students? So I actually think this helps with large classrooms because you have something that they're physically accountable for to make them responsible for their learning.
And Geraldine has a question on if it's possible to incorporate this into a listening activity.
Yeah, it's sort of a non-writing dictation activity too. If they're watching you and you are saying what to do and watching you, they respond to that. So they are listening to you. You can maybe use the little books to write down dictations, actual dictations in there. You can have somebody else speak and have them write down what they speak. You can have the students present whatever they wrote in their books, and then the students can respond to what they heard their peers say. You can do all kinds of different things, but I think the main thing is the fact that they're having to hear the directions. If you don't want to use the written directions, they're having to hear you and watch you do that at the same time. Or if you want to just try and do it just listening and having them not see that, that's up to you as well.
And there was a question from Mirna on if you have any specific books to read more about multiple intelligences.
There are plenty. You can take a look at Howard Gardner's book that's on the list there. On the resources list, that's right from the theorist. There's a lot of different activities. There's a lot of different information that's out there as well. If I can send you an email specific if you tell me more specifically of what your population is, and I can find something to that. You'll also find information in many different languages on this, on multiple intelligences now. I would do a Google search.
Okay, and then I think we have time for one more question, and this is from Orlando, who wants to know about using foldable books to motivate adult learners who have a basic level.
Okay, with that one, you can start with just helping them organize the language and using it as sort of like a study tool. Like folding things, you've got it in fourths, you just fold the paper in fourths, and then here you've got, I don't know if you're starting with colors here, you've got shapes here, those two things. I would just use those more as like, I would sell it to them as a study tool. Like, hey, here's something we're going to do with a study tool, and meanwhile, you're going to learn some vocabulary about like this paper, some verbs too. They're going to implicitly get things like fold the paper to the right, that's a sentence. Fold the paper to the left, fold the paper from the top, fold the paper from the bottom. So they'll get implicit language, and they can see you doing those things, and then once they hear you say it over and over and over, it'll start to commit to memory from that. So I think roughly just selling it as something with total physical response, letting them know, hey, I'm going to give you guys a break from such and such grammar book we've been working in, and we're going to use this to organize things and let you guys take some class time to make some study tools, is how I would sell it.
Okay. All right, and then last question. This one is from Jonathan, and it's about if you have any ideas on how you could incorporate the foldable books with music.
That sounds like fun. Maybe if you have a song and you want to write the chorus inside of the song, and they are playing that song, and when it comes to the chorus, they can use their book to use it to read and sing along with it, sort of like their own little karaoke book. You can have them list the songs that they like. I'm not really sure. You can always play music in the background. I'm going to actually look that up and research some ideas on that. Not off the top of my head. I haven't put that together, but I I think it's a fantastic idea. Music is an excellent tool.
All right.
Great question.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Erika. All right, so a lot of you have been asking questions as well about how to get the material and when the next webinar will be. The material, just so that everyone knows, all of the webinars are recorded and they are uploaded to the U.S. Embassy webinar YouTube channel. So if you go into YouTube and you search for RELO Andy's webinars, you will see recorded versions of all the webinars. So if you were unable to download the handout with the instructions from the PowerPoint during the webinar, you can check it out on YouTube, and that way you can pause it and look at the instructions that way. You can also respond to the confirmation email that you received when you registered, and that would go to me, and I'm happy to share it with you that way. The other question that came up is, when is the next webinar? And that will be next month in July. The presenter will be Ellen, who is also an English language fellow. She is located in Quito, Ecuador. And the topic of the next webinar will be TOEFL IBT success strategies and tips. And that will be on Tuesday, July 26th, once again from 3 to 4 p.m. Peru time. So thank you for joining us for this webinar. You can find us on Facebook to follow RELO Andes. We're also on Twitter, and like I said, all of the webinars are recorded and put onto the YouTube channel, so you can search for us on any of those sites. If you want to get on the mailing list so that you can be alerted of future webinars and future events, you can email us at reloandes@state.gov, and there we'll give you information on how you can get connected for future events. So thank you to everyone for joining us, and we hope you can join us next month. Thank you. Bye.